poppin', people? This your boy, Lo the Lefty, and you're watching The Open Floor, unscripted. And the reason why I'm telling you this unscripted is because I don't have a script, exactly what it sounds like. Now, I don't want to talk too much or beat up too much about this Spence Porter thing because we all know the news. It's being beat down. I mean, yes, it was a great fight. It was an epic fight. I have no problem with that fight being fight of the year or being labeled a classic, especially as one of the better fighters that we've seen in a while. Not a long time, because there's been a lot of great fights out there. But as far as the 147-pound welterweight division, that was one of the best ones, especially of 2019, if not the best, arguably. Now, before I get started, I want to give a special shout out to Devin Alexander, a.k.a. Alexander the Great. Southpaw, former champion, still one of my favorite fighters, not just because he's a southpaw, because he's a lefty. He's just one of my favorite fighters. Real cool guy, based off of, you know, his interaction with the crowd, his interaction even with myself. You know, a lot of people, when they become a certain level, they get to a certain level of stardom, they don't really see the little ants in the field. They forget that they were once an ant themselves. And Devin Alexander has done nothing but show me love and show me support. I've been a fan of Devin Alexander. I wish him nothing but the best. Wish him well in whatever he decides to do. If he wants to lace him back up and get back in the ring, I believe Devin Alexander is more than capable of making a run and get his name into title contention. Now, you may have some people that, you know, may feel opposite or feel this way or that way. Keep in mind, you're not fighting, you're not putting the gloves on, you're not fighting the elite fighters out there in the world. So it's kind of hard. Now, of course, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm only saying that because it's only right to respect anyone who has enough courage to try to establish their legacy through a dangerous sport where you're risking your life and also trying to provide financial means for your family, not just to prove that you are amongst the best or strive to be the best, but also get in there and try to entertain the people. So shout out to Devin Alexander. Talk to you soon, champ. Now, Shawn Porter and Errol the True Spence Jr., briefly, they were discussing rematch. Errol Spence said that let's run it back. Porter said let's do it. So many words. It was more to it than that. You know, Porter said I'm a machine. You know, Errol Spence said, hey, I'm a big fish, I'm the shark, so on and so forth. Would love to see that fight. I have no issue with them running it back. I feel like that fight, that rematch needs to happen due to how the first fight was. Win or lose, whether Errol lost or whether Spence or Porter lost, wouldn't have mattered. The way that fight happened, the way everything played out, definitely we want to see that fight next. But besides that, if not, we got Errol Spence, Danny Garcia. Errol Spence versus Danny Swift Garcia is also another great fight. Now, will we see the action in that fight that we saw against Porter? No, it won't go 90 miles per hour like it did against Porter because of the style of Porter. Danny is he's not as aggressive as Shawn Porter is. Shawn Porter, nobody can beat Shawn Porter being Shawn Porter. Danny is Danny. Danny, he has underrated defense, and he's underrated as a counterpuncher. Especially with that overhand, almost looping no-look left hook that he throws, and that puts your lights out. I'm going to get orthodox for a second and try to give you some type of picture of the way Danny throws that punch. You can ask Amir Khan at 140 pounds what that punch is like. But Danny throws that punch, boom, and it's like a looping punch. It comes over, and a lot of people get shook, rock, drop, if not put to sleep from that punch. Now, will he catch Errol Spence with that punch? At some point during the fight, he very well can. You know, Danny is a very accurate puncher. He's very accurate. I just feel like Danny needs to be more active and let his hands go a lot more. Danny's also a big fighter. He's bigger than Shawn Porter. Danny is one of the bigger 147 pounders in the welterweight division. He may not be as tall as Spence, but he's definitely he's definitely a big guy for 147 pounds. He filled out the 147 pound weight division. He filled out very well. So, do I see a knockout in that fight? I don't. We're starting to see now that Spence is more of a boxer puncher, southpaw. He can overwhelm you with accumulation of shots and pressure if you allow him to do so. If you allow him to pressure you, if you allow him to load you up with body shots, he eventually breaks you down and potentially can get a stoppage. But we're seeing now that at the elite level, and Spence is also seeing now, that it's not easy to go through and just start knocking everybody out. You can even ask Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather in the lower weight division in his earlier days, in his prime, when he was fighting at the lower weight classes, he was knocking almost everybody out. I mean, he was definitely a puncher. Now, he said after the Arturo Gatti fight, he said that's when his body began to break down and his hands, were not what they were, and that's when the knockouts slowed down to almost nearly stop. I mean, almost every Floyd Mayweather fight, just about from that point on, was starting to go the distance more. Besides, when he got that stoppage of Ricky Hatton, and also that, I guess you can call it a stoppage, against Victor Ortiz. Ortiz headbutted him, kissed him, and then wanted to make friends and got caught. You know what I'm saying? I mean, call it dirty, call it what you want. Technically on paper, it's a knockout, and that was his last knockout besides the fight with Conor McGregor, and I'm not even going to count that. That was just a showcase. That was just entertainment. No diss to Floyd, but we all know that was entertainment. But back to Shawn Porter, back to Errol Spence, back to Darian Garcia, back to Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao says he missed it. He's ready to get back in the mix. His confidence, you can imagine, is rejuvenated. Pacquiao saw that, hey, I can still get in there and bang with these younger guys. And can you blame him? Pacquiao just beat Adrian Broner. Now, Adrian Broner is not the biggest name. It's not that big a deal to beat AB because we all know, no disrespect to AB. Even though a lot of people want to disrespect him, I'm not going to disrespect AB. Like I said, he's getting in the ring. He's risking his life. He's trying to entertain us just like everybody else, even though he may not be the entertainer he used to be. But he beat Adrian Broner. He beat Keith One-Time Thurman. That fight was just about in competition with the Spence Porter fight for Fight of the Year. Both of those fights were classics, were really good fights. We had knockdowns that were a big factor in those fights that determined the winner. The only difference is Keith Thurman got hurt twice in that Pacquiao fight. The knockdown, and also I believe it's the 10th round, will have you where he got caught with a body shot. Pacquiao is still dangerous. Before, I probably would have counted Pacquiao out against the Errol Spence. I would have counted a Pacquiao out against a Terrence Bud Crawford. Not necessarily sure if I would have counted him out against Danny. No disrespect to Danny, but Danny, again, Pacquiao is very active. He's very a lot of action. He's a southpaw. He's very awkward, and I feel like if Danny doesn't hurt Pacquiao and catch him with one of those punches, because Danny doesn't have a large punch output. Even though he's a strong puncher, even though he's an excellent boxer, he's an excellent counter puncher. Even though he does have underrated defense, even though his defense is not the flashiest. You don't see the Philly shell. You don't see a whole lot of head movement. You just see block, textbook blocking, and again, like I was saying in my past video, with the style with people who block like that allow their opponents to make contact, whether they land or not, it's going to look like they're being outworked. It's going to look like they're being outpointed. But that's a good fight as well, Pacquiao versus Danny Swift Garcia. Now, a Pacquiao versus Errol Spence, I really don't want to mention that right now because that's pretty much like a fantasy fight that I don't see happening anytime soon because Errol Spence has a lot of unfinished business. I won't say a lot, but he does have unfinished business with Shawn Porter. Even if he moves on and fights Danny, even if he moves on and fights Terrence Crawford, And if he wins or loses, all depends on how he looks and depends on if people are still interested in seeing Errol Spence perform, depending on his showmanship and depending if he take L's or if he remains undefeated. Either way it go, we still have to see Errol Spence versus Showtime Shawn Porter, the rematch, because that fight was that close, that fight was that good. Now, Shawn Porter stated if he doesn't get the Errol Spence rematch, that he wouldn't have no problem fighting Terrence Bud Crawford. He did mention, he said there is the business side of it that can make that complicated, but if we really want to make it happen, we can definitely make that fight happen. I'm sure the two camps, the business, the promoters can come together and make that fight happen. It would be smart for Terrence Crawford to take that kind of fight with Shawn Porter, given that he gets past his Mando, that he gets past his opponent that he's fighting in December. I don't know too much about the guy, not to disrespect him. I believe his name is Engigis or something like that, War Machine, something to that nature. But if he gets past that guy, and Porter doesn't get the Spence rematch, let's say Spence Danny happens, it would be a beautiful, beautiful gift to see Shawn Porter again on pay-per-view in the early part of 2020 to fight Terrence Bud Crawford. To me, as much props and as much respect and as much as I'm a fan of Terrence Crawford, I'm also a fan of Shawn Porter. I'm going to give that a 50-50 because of the performance and because of what Shawn Porter showed us. Shawn Porter is definitely a true welterweight in my eyes to me. Even though he's a littler guy, you know, with Spence, and I believe he was smaller than Danny. But he's still a true welterweight because of how he handles himself at welterweight, and he can definitely bang with those guys. And I believe he would definitely give Terrence Crawford a good fight. On paper, Terrence Crawford, to me, beats most, if not all, the fighters at 147. He will be the favorite to me because of the tools that he has in his arsenal. He's the most versatile boxer at 147 pounds. Terrence Crawford can fight southpaw. He can also fight orthodox. He can stand in there and go toe-to-toe with you. He's mean. He's quick. He's accurate. He has underrated power. And Terrence Crawford is a lot stronger than people realize. Jeff Horn muscled Pacquiao around in that fight. When they fought, you could say he was dirty or whatever you want to say. You say, well, Pacquiao, he's smaller than most people. Who's not going to muscle Pacquiao around? I haven't seen Pacquiao being muscled around by anybody besides Jeff Horn. Because most of the time, Pacquiao is fast. He's moving. He's using his head. He's using his legs. He's awkward. He has power. He's going to keep you respecting him. But when you look at the size of Jeff Horn and how he was muscling Pacquiao around, you was like, man, Terrence Crawford coming up from 140 pounds, and he's coming in and he's going to fight Jeff Horn, who's a pretty big welterweight. You see how he was doing Pacquiao. How is Terrence Crawford going to handle that? Well, you see how Terrence Crawford handled that. He handled him. He muscled Jeff Horn around. He punished Jeff Horn. Punished him. He beat him up. And I don't see anybody else. I see more competition, but the way Terrence Crawford fights, he is definitely strong enough to compete at 147 pounds. And I feel like he would be the favorite against most people, if not all of them, in a fight. Whether it's between him and Spence. They say, well, that's a 50-50 fight. I like Spence. Spence is strong. He's an Olympian. He has grit. He has a chin. But he's not perfect. Neither is Terrence. But Terrence just has more in the bag. I feel like Terrence will be the favorite to me in that fight, especially based off what we've seen with Porter versus Errol, which a lot of us were saying. Roy Jones said it. A few other commentators said it. I even said it, in my past videos, that this fight between Errol Spence and Shawn Porter is going to show us exactly what we're looking at here with Errol Spence. We're looking at something good. I'm still not sure we're looking at something special or great. So far, Terrence Crawford has showed us special. At 140 pounds, he showed us special and great. I can't say great at 147 pounds because he hasn't unified. He hasn't fought the top dogs as of yet at 147 pounds. The last guy that I've seen him fight against, I won't say the last guy besides Khan, when he fought Jose Benavidez. But Benavidez is a, they say he was a one-legged fighter. I guess he got shot in the leg or what have you. I watched that fight, and Benavidez was, taking Terrence's punches pretty. Apparently, it looked like he was taking Terrence's punches pretty well, and he was being competitive in the first part of the fight. But then he got knocked out nasty in the 12th round with that uppercut. Terrence is one of those fighters you can never get comfortable in and sleep on, especially during the fight, because at any moment he has skill and he has sneaky power and he does have good speed and he has a lot of accuracy. He can touch you, he can hurt you. He can drop you. He can knock you out, and he's an excellent finisher. So that's definitely a great fight. I don't know really exactly what we're going to get here in the upcoming months or coming in 2020, but I know that we do have a lot of great fights. It seems like the business side of boxing is starting to unravel and starting to show all of us exactly what their plans are, because we were getting frustrated, we were losing patience because we were like, what's up with these fights? These fights need to happen. All we keep hearing is excuses and people ducking, what have you. We're finally starting to get the fights that we've been screaming for, that we've been wanting. So let's see what happens. We got Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. He's fighting at 160 pounds. Jermall Charlo, the Charlo twin, the bigger Charlo, 160 pounds. Demetrius, he's like, I want to fight. Canelo's fighting at 170 pounds, 75 pounds. You also got Billy Joe Saunders. I believe he's at 168. And Demetrius is like, I got the title. I believe it's the WBO. I'm ready to unify. What's up? Why can't I get in the mix? I want the big fights. I'm ready to put my title on the line and fight Triple G. Triple G is tied up. He has a very dangerous fight coming up with Derevyanchenko, which is a possibility that he can lose if he's not ready. That guy he's coming up against, he's definitely going to get in there and he's going to give Triple G a fight. Don't sleep on that fight. That's going to be a great fight. But I feel like at this point, Charlo versus Andre. They've been talking on and off for years, back and forth. Let's do it. If nobody else wants to play, let's see that fight. I would definitely love to see that fight. I think that's a great fight. If I were to pick a winner in that fight, it would be kind of hard because Charlo is a very strong puncher. He's strong and he has a jab that's like a power shot. His jab is that powerful. He's dropped people. He's almost stopped people with that hard jab that he has, and he does have a very nice right hand and a very good counter uppercut. But how would he do against a southpaw in Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade? Well, the last time, not saying that Charlo hasn't faced any southpaws as of lately, but the last time that I've actually seen a southpaw give Jermall Charlo a real problem and made the fight close, arguably could have won, was a prime Austin Trout. Now we know Trout right now, I think his better days are behind him. Shout out to Trout, but I think his better days, his best days are behind him. But the fight, go back and watch that fight, Austin Trout versus Jermall Charlo. And if Austin Trout had any more power, if he was just if he was stronger, I think that fight could have ended a different way. But we'll see what happens. Listen, this is your boy, Lo the Lefty. Thank you for watching The Open Floor, Unscripted. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell to get notifications whenever I'm dropping videos. Until the next time, I'm out.